Okay, here we go.
We are live. It says that we are live. Hello, everyone. Coach Leanne here, coming to you live from Phoenix, Arizona. And I am joined by my beautiful co host this morning. Hey, Elise.
Hey, Leanne, it's great to be here.
It is so wonderful to be here with you and share with our viewers where are you streaming in from today?
Atlanta, Georgia. So
So you,
maybe not quite as hot as Arizona, but it's warm today. So
oh my goodness.
yeah,
It's going to be a cooker today. I think we had 114 yesterday, Elise. I
I can't
stayed
imagine.
in most of the day.
No, I think we're about 91 or 92. So we're at
Okay.
a real, yeah, that would feel cool to you. It feels warm to me, but yeah. So, but summer
Well,
is here. We shouldn't be surprised.
we shouldn't be surprised. And, here we are. We are here on Leslie's page. You are in the right space. If
Mhm.
you are on Leslie Vernick's Facebook page, Enriching Relationships That Matter Most, you are tuned in to the right space. Coach Elise and I have the privilege of being here today to talk about moving beyond rejection. Moving beyond rejection. This is a big topic. And so, if you could let us know in the feed that you are live with us,
Mhm.
we would so appreciate that to know that we are here in service to you and in community with you. So, go ahead and type into the feed now. Let us know where you're streaming in from.
Mhm.
Maybe you are on the West Coast with me or on the East Coast experiencing humidity and heat with Elise. They
Mhm.
say Phoenix is a dry heat. I
Mhm.
don't know. That's okay. I could reject some of this high temperatures if I could, but here we are. So I'm going to take a peek in the comments. Hey, I see we have Alaska.
Oh,
I
wow.
see, oh my goodness, Kansas City, Vancouver, BC is in the house.
Mhm.
Toronto is in the house. Welcome, Anne.
Yeah.
All right. Hey,
Yes.
Orlando.
Yes, humidity in Orlando. Yes, I'm a native Floridian, so I understand that. Central Florida.
Indeed. All right. So here we go. Ladies, thank you so much for letting us know that you're here. And we are really privileged to be here with you today to talk about this word rejection. Something about that word inspired and encouraged you to be here today.
Mhm.
I know for in my world, rejection has been a roller coaster ride for me my entire life, like since my conception.
Mhm.
And so here we are. We want to just can we just start right off the bat, Elise, and normalize this whole thing about
Yeah,
rejection and say that rejection happens to everyone?
absolutely.
And can we,
Nobody gets a pass.
nobody gets a pass from being rejected, rejecting others, or trying to do something with the rejection that we experience.
Right.
And we also acknowledge and are really aware that rejection stings
Mhm.
and it hurts.
Mhm. Yeah.
It does.
Yeah.
And so, Elise, when you hear me share that, I'm curious, what comes up for you?
Yeah. I feel, in the times of rejection, I think it's been very painful. I can almost feel it in my chest. That's, where I would even feel it in my body. And then also, I feel very lonely in rejection. It's a very isolating, a very lonely thing. I mean, the person next to you hasn't experienced, I mean, they've experienced it, but they may not be experiencing what you're experiencing. So it can feel very isolating and you can feel very alone in the process. And kind of you use the word sting, and I agree. Sometimes it's anywhere from a mosquito bite sting, it's like ouch, to if you've ever been stung by something really really bad, been at the beach and stepped on something bad, you know what a really terrible sting feels like. And so certainly we could scale it. There's some gravity, or a scale to this sting of rejection. Sometimes you kind of like, ugh, ouch, but you move on easily. Sometimes it really can take us down for a while, no doubt.
Well, it can. And the thing about a sting, hey, there's a rhyme there, but the thing about a sting, it's Monday, folks.
Yeah, yeah.
It's
You're
Monday.
good at that,
The
Leah.
thing, the thing about a sting is it can come when you least expect it.
Mhm.
And the rejection feeling that we can experience, it can blindside us. We can be swimming right along, and all of a sudden, bam, somebody doesn't return a text
Right.
or an email that we sent. Or
Right.
maybe we see a picture on Facebook of a party that we were not invited to
Yeah.
or that we were uninvited to.
Right. Right.
All of these different areas of rejection can be a sting. And so we would love to hear from you. Eileen, Leslie, Becky, Terry, Tasha, Karina, share with us a recent rejection. Have you experienced a recent rejection in your world, maybe in the last couple of weeks?
Yeah.
How has that felt? Was the sting a mosquito bite, a fire ant, a wasp, a jellyfish?
Yeah, that's what jellyfish.
Oh my goodness.
Right.
What kind of experience did you have with that rejection? We
Mhm.
want to dive right in and get to the heart of
Mhm.
this because it's real and
Mhm.
we all can experience it.
Right. Yeah. And as I said a little bit earlier, sometimes oftentimes I carry pain really in my chest, and sometimes we carry it kind of in our bowels. We get really uncomfortable there, or our whole body can feel very lethargic. And so also just knowing that pain, studies have shown that that rejection really can show up in the body as inflammation. We can see it. We know it. We know that the body actually very much receives it. So not only is our mind and our heart kind of body soul receiving it, our body is actually receiving it as well. And so it's a whole body experience. So we don't want to minimize it, but we can certainly we can say it's scalable sometimes. As Leanne was saying, sometimes it's just an owie, like that hurt. Sometimes it's pretty devastating, right? A breakup, a divorce, a separation, our children rejecting us, a job loss, a job layoff, right? Sometimes job losses are welcome. Sometimes we never saw them coming. We're blindsided by them, right? And so really, so let me just kind of, yes, horrible, a gunshot. My gracious, I can't imagine. I'm so sorry. Betrayed by my husband. Feels like a death. Yeah, I agree. My husband in eHarmony. Wow. He is single. We still aren't divorced. Ouch. Terrible state to
Those
see
are
this
terrible.
be gone. Right.
They are the betrayal, the rejection that betrayal brings. It's very real. And we just want to remind you, this is Leslie's public Facebook page. So please, be thoughtful as far as what you type in
Yes.
to the feed because other people will see it. This is not a private chat that we're having right now. Although Elise and I love the fact that we are sitting here knee to knee with you in this vulnerable, tender space
Mm-hmm.
around this topic of rejection.
Mm-hmm. So, one of the things that I wanted to talk about, and Leanne, you do such a beautiful job with this, but I'm going to give you a little example. One of the things I was thinking about when I was kind of preparing for this and uh, talking about rejection, I was thinking about years ago. I'd heard Leslie talk about our worth and valuing ourselves. And oftentimes rejection just takes such a hard hit on that. And this is one of the things that we want to talk about just a little bit for a second, of moving beyond that rejection or hurt. And it's going to be about the narrative that we're telling ourselves when this happens, right? And so this is a little bit of a funny, but I'm going to reach down here and get this handbag that I have. So years ago, a couple of years ago, not too long ago, someone brought me this Louis Vuitton bag, and it's a fakie. It's not real. It was very inexpensive. I happened to look up today before I got on, and it goes this way. And it's like, what is the cost of? I don't even know what a cost of a Louis Vuitton bag would be. But anyway, I Googled it, and it was like $2,300. So let's just say for fun's sake, that this is a $2,300 bag. I can't even imagine. That's not my jam at all. But anyway, let's say it is a real Louis Vuitton bag, which is a designer, right? And so let's say we're friends. You come over to my house, and you see that I've got a little, let's say a rejection pile of clothes that I no longer want, but I don't want to throw them away. I'm recycling them, and so I'm going to take them onto Goodwill. But on the top of this pile is this Louis Vuitton bag, right? And so I think that not all my friends, but some of my friends might be going, "Hey, Elise, what is that Louis Vuitton bag going?" could I have it? Right? And so the fact that I would say no to it doesn't diminish, and again, we're pretending that it's this a real one and it's super valuable. The fact that I would put it on the pile doesn't diminish its worth. The next person that walks right behind me may say, wow, wait a minute. Why would you get rid of that? Do you know how valuable it is? And I would say, I do know how valuable it is. It's just not my thing. It's not my jam. I don't, that's not who I am, right? And so, but the next person behind me go, oh, I would love to have it. Well, certainly here, take it, right? And so oftentimes, and Leanne, I want you to kind of go further with this. You did such a beautiful job that we take rejection so personally that it's about our value or our worth.
You know, we really do. And I think this has been an area in my life that I have struggled with on and off,
Mhm.
you know, since conception for me and since my birth. And, you know, watching the self talk that is going on in my head. How is it that I'm speaking to myself about my value, about my worth, about my ability to contribute to this thing called life that we get to walk together, about how other people see me and experience who I am and how I'm experiencing them. You know, we can have so many voices inside of our head that I share with a lot of the ladies that I work with about developing the ability to turn down the volume on the noise of this world and turn up the volume of God's voice
Yeah.
speaking into our lives about who it is that we are.
Right.
Because, you know, and I'm a thrifter, Elise. I get the Louis Vuitton story. You know, for me, those of you who know me very well, or if you don't, you're going to get a little peek into Leanne's world. But I absolutely love to go thrifting. I call myself like a secondhand diva. In fact, the shirt that I have on right now, I got at the secondhand store. I love this color. And so I go looking for tops of this color because I'm on screen a lot, right? And this is the color that I love. And so just because somebody else discarded it doesn't mean it's not of value to me.
Right.
And so maybe they were just done with it. Maybe they didn't like it. The color didn't work for them, whatever. But we have an opportunity to take rejection and reframe it, reclaim it, and then decide what it is that we're going to do with it. So the rejection, like we said, is going to come into our world. What we do with the rejection that comes at us is up to us. We can look at it as a chance to reclaim a worth or a value,
Right.
or we can, you know, let it go.
Right.
Whatever it is that's going to serve us. You know, you have your Louis Vuitton bag, Elise. I have my worthy girl. Can I just show my worthy girl? How many of you want to see?
Yeah.
If you want to see my worthy girl,
Yes.
type into the chat. All
Yes.
right.
Yes.
So here's my worthy girl. Okay, so
Love her.
this is my worthy girl. So when I get stuck honoring who it is that God created me to be, when I am feeling rejected by another human being, I look to worthy girl. And I say, what am I seeing in her that I'm not seeing in me that I want to reclaim? Right? And so anyway, I'm holding this up there. You know, look she's got a headband on. Right?
Right.
And she's got the star on there. She is being very thoughtful about what it is she's thinking about.
Right.
She is allowing God's word to penetrate her thoughts and to kick the negative out. She's got a belt of truth on.
Right.
She's got some boots that are going to allow her to walk through rejection and into freedom and worth in ways that nobody else can. And, you know, I'm looking at these. I've never noticed this until this moment. Okay. This is just me being real. They've got a stripe right down the middle. I just thought that was a shadow. It's not. There is a white stripe down each one of these boots that points her straight ahead. I've never noticed that until right now. And so there, you know, this is speaking to me in this moment about worth and value is an opportunity for us to walk more fully into God, who God created us to be, with strength and dignity, and to be able to shake off. You know, she's got this cape on. She can shake off the rejection of others and put on the acceptance of Christ.
Mhm.
So I'm going to stop there because I could go metaphor junkie all day long, but I'm going to stop, Elise. And, you know, as you hear me share that, thank you for the invitation.
Yeah.
Worth and value. If there's one thing that I'm super passionate about on this planet is for every woman to claim their worth.
Yes.
So thank you for an
Mhm.
opportunity for me to share a little bit of my
Yeah.
heart.
Yeah. Just because someone has shared what you have shared before, it did. You did the WV, you know, maybe you could share that with the women. Would that be all right? Is that okay?
Yeah, I would love that. Thank you for that invitation as well. So here's the deal, ladies.
Yeah.
Sometimes I can forget my worth. And maybe sometimes you can too.
Mm-hmm.
Did you know that God is so gracious and kind and loving to us that, you know, somewhere on our two hands, we have three fingers. Not all of us have all of our appendages, but somewhere between two hands or hands and feet, we have the ability with three fingers to put up a W. Did you know God allows us to do this? This is a W to remind us that sometimes I have to put it right in front of my face and remind myself that when others reject me, God never does.
Amen.
I am worth,
Amen.
I'm a gem to him. I am worth everything to him.
Right.
And then the V, Elise, is for value.
Yes.
I can forget that I have value. And so sometimes I just need to put this up. And so, ladies, type a V or a W into the feed. We would like to know that when you are experiencing rejection, which takes the greatest hit? Your value or your worth?
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
We would love to hear from you. Which one do you need today?
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Right.
Yeah. So, Elise, when you think, you know, you're so warm and inclusive and loving, I can't imagine that anybody ever feels rejected by you. Just saying, you have to be one of the most lovely, inclusive women that I know.
That's great. Thank you.
How is it that you do that for people? What is it inside of you that allows you to provide that safe space for people?
Well, first of all, I don't think I'm quite that precious. I think I know sometimes when I have rejected others or not been kind, and that I appreciate that you've experienced something different from me. But I don't think really in my humanity without Christ that would be possible, right? That, you know, even with Christ, I think we all struggle to be unkind or to reject, right? But certainly because of Christ in me, I really have to look through the lens of the Lord, that whoever is on the other side of me has tremendous worth and value, right? They are a creation. They are an image bearer, as I am. And so I'm always like, you know, we are reflecting the image of God constantly with one another. God isn't rejection, right? And so he certainly leads. He may close doors. He may say no. That may feel like a rejection, but it's a part of who he is and a part of his sovereignty. And so I was looking at some of the feeds, and ladies were talking about being rejected by their spouses, being rejected by their daughters, you know, and great suffering and great pain. And listen, ladies, we are not minimizing that. Certainly with our W and our V, with our Louis Vuitton story, we're trying to really say, because we experience that from someone else, does not diminish what God has already claimed.
That's right.
Right? And he has put you ladies in this time, in this generation, for his glory. Right? He's not wanting you out there with slumped shoulders and, you know, hanging or was saying, I'm not worthy. That's a rejection in a sense of him. You know, it would be like, you know, if you said, you know, passed on this Louis Vuitton bag and you said, I'm not worthy. And God's going, what? Pick that up, girlfriend. You know, that is an incredible thing. You know, pick your worth back up, even though another human may set it down or may set it to the side or say no to us, right? And so I want us to really, again, we don't want to minimize in any way that it's a very painful, a very lonely, a very isolating process when it happens to us. But we want to say, you are not alone. Look at this feed. everyone on this page is talking about their experience of rejection. We all have experienced it. So, what I want to talk about just for a second, though, ladies, is when we experience it, what do we begin to tell ourselves, right? We all become, and Leslie's used this phrase, and I love it, we all become creative writers, right? And so at that moment, we start creating all kind of stories of why it's happened, all about ourselves. It's because of this, it's because, I wasn't this, or I was too much of that, or whatever it may be, right? And so nobody has an opportunity to say, hey, that it's not okay, right? And so I want you to be very, very careful. We start making incredible meaning of that rejection. And I want you to kind of shrink that down and begin to say, let me hear my thoughts. Is that true? Do I know that to be true? That sometimes it is true, right? And if it's true, what does that mean? So, very important question for you all to ask. My spouse has rejected me. My children have rejected me. My employer has rejected me. My neighbor won't talk to me. What meaning am I making of that? So important. Is that true? Do I know that to be true? And again, let me repeat, ladies, that sometimes it is true. I put my fence too far and my neighbor didn't like it. I didn't do that, but I'm using an example. And maybe I'm kind of okay with my dog, going crossing the neighbor's yard and the neighbor saying, no, no, no. And so much so that they begin to reject me. Well, that story's not true about me. I'm saying it can happen, right? And so, so maybe sometimes we have to seek something out before we make an assumption. We are natural assumers. And we think that every thought that passes through our head is true. It's not true. Please slow it down. If we're going to move beyond rejection, we must walk in truth, right? We must walk in truth and reality. Now, let me say something positive, though, about rejection. Is that I say this to my singles when I'm working with singles. I said this to my children as they begin to date. I said, I'm not sure that you can date, right, until you are ready to know that you're going to be rejected along the way, and until you have the ability and the strength to reject, right? Because if we can't make those decisions and those choices for ourselves, we could get ourselves in some bad places. And this is really what we're going to be talking about our next class coming up, is moving beyond people pleasing. We're like, oh, I'm afraid if I tell them that I can't date them anymore, then what's going to happen? And they're going to be mad at me and they're going to be hurt and I can't stand their hurt, right? And now we've gotten ourselves in a dill pickle. We're in a relationship we should never be in, right? And so, ladies, on some level, this can be also a strength that we need to grow and develop our no. That's not okay with me. So we may be rejecting a person. We may be rejecting a habit. We may be rejecting something about that does not fit or work, right? We may be rejecting a meal. And sometimes I see ladies that, like, I said, well, hey, did you take that, dress back? No, I hate to take things back. I hate when the clerk looks at me. I'm like, I don't quite understand that. But, it's like, you're not going to get your money back. I know. But the rejection or the disapproval of a waitress or, a clerk or someone, because you want your money back or the meal wasn't right. So rejection we need to actually be able to strengthen ourselves as well and say no when it doesn't fit well for us. Now, as Leanne kind of led me into this, we can do that with grace. We don't have to do that with harm. We can do that with grace. But it is important for our well-being to be able to, even though it stings, to be able to say others may not be okay with me. And I have that same ability and probably need as well to be able to say no, which can feel like a rejection. So, Leanne, you want to kind of speak around that or take it somewhere else?
Well, that was beautiful. And I think something that we can remember is that we don't need to believe everything that we think.
Yes, 100%.
Okay, so the stories that we can tell ourselves that are swimming around in our head. I don't know about any of you, but I can be a master storyteller. And those stories that I tell myself can diminish the way that my worth and my value. Okay. The way that I view myself, I can believe the stories in my head before I believe what God is saying to me, or even the person across the table from me. Having the courage to have the conversations that matter most, to gain some clarity. So, I had a coach challenge me once, Elise, that because of my fear of rejection and the fact that it would stop me from maybe taking a risk or putting my voice out there or sharing an idea, I had a coach challenge me to say, okay, put yourself in situations, Leanne, where you have opportunities to be rejected on a regular basis.
Oh, wow.
Ask people to coffee, all of that, because that way the sting is not going to hurt as much. No, normalize it. It's not just about you and the stories that you tell.
Right.
People are going to have preferences. And you spoke a bit ago, Elise, about I'll just reframe it a little bit, but about the power to say yes and the power to say no.
Right.
And when we can own our yeses and our nos, and when we can allow other people to own their yeses and their nos, and not put every yes and no through the filter of rejection, stuff can change for us. And, I had written down that I am not willing to give my life away to the fear of rejection.
Oh,
I am not. That is on my notes. It is on my paper. It is in front of me. And so when we think, ladies, about what are you not willing to do with rejection? Okay, so for me, I'm not willing to give my life away. I'm not willing to give away the calling that God has on my life because of a fear of rejection. I'm not willing to give my relationship away because of the fear of rejection. Ladies, what is it for you? We have an opportunity to decide how far we will go and no farther.
Right.
Okay. And so we are going to be offering up a challenge next week. Okay. It runs June 20th to June the 24th. And right down here, you can see this web address, leslievernick.com/challenge. And Elise and I are here to warmly invite you to sign up for this challenge. We're going to be gathering every day that week, and we're going to be talking about moving beyond many different things all week long. And you're not going to want to miss it. It's only $17. All right. So go to that link, find out some more information. At that link, Leslie has a beautiful video where she explains more about the challenge and what we're going to be moving beyond and what we're going to be moving through with you. So we just want to encourage you to go to that link and sign up. If you have signed up, let us know in the feed that you are excited. Let your sisters know that you are excited to be part of this Moving Beyond Challenge. There is no better opportunity than this summer to kick some of these fears and insecurities aside that rejection can invite in. We can do that. We've got some questions, Elise, coming into the feed that, everything that we've talked about is generating some beautiful energy in the space. And so are you okay with us?
Yeah, let's pause just 1 second, because I read something in the feed just a minute ago, and I really want to address what someone had said, and I think it's I'm really glad that she would speak up. Really glad that she would speak up, and she basically stated that kind of what was happening in her life, a dissolution of marriage, some rejection from her spouse, certainly didn't match when I was talking about in a tiff with my neighbor over a dog or something like that. It doesn't. And I think Leanne started us out with talking about things that, some rejection or some fuss or, where there's tension, there's rejection, that there's a sting. That's a small mosquito bite when when my neighbor gives me a hard look. We're talking about, a sharp bite, it's a death. When a spouse has been you're rejected and a divorce is going to happen. It's past a sting, right? It's a death. The rejection is fatal on some level. It certainly doesn't take our life, and it's going to lead in really, Leanne, to what you were just saying. That was so beautiful when you said, I'm not willing for it to take my life, that this may be devastating. And ladies, the last thing I want you to feel is minimized in any way of what we're talking about. We just want there to be a range and understand that really probably more often than not, what we're working with is certainly a very personal rejection from a spouse or one of our children, right? We just wanted to expose it that we all experience rejection. Not everyone experiences that rejection from a spouse, or from their children. And, certainly I've had some similar experiences, but what do we do with that? And Leanne, that was such an incredible thing. Like you're going to have to hold that. That's going to be so hard and, and devastating. It's going to be so painful, so isolating. But man, Leanne has this walk line. I'm not going to let it take my life and take me down with it. But am I going to feel it? 100%. What am I going to do? How am I going to gather myself up and recover in the process? Leanne.
Yeah, at least, you just brought up a beautiful point, and thank you for that acknowledgement, right? Because the sting is real, the hurt is real. And man, I'm really sorry.
Yeah.
Girlfriends, for the areas in which you have been rejected in your life, the betrayal, the abuse, the sexual misrepresentation in your marriages. We do not want to minimize that in any way. It's very real.
Right.
I had an opportunity in my life to reconcile some serious rejection. So I don't know how many of you know it, but I'm an adopted person. All right. And so I experienced a rejection, a grief, and a loss 57 years ago, 2 weeks ago. I just had a birthday. And so every year I walk through the truth that I was rejected. My life was relinquished to someone else. And, acknowledging that, feeling that, owning that, knowing that, and not being afraid to look at it with, not this lens, but with this lens, a wide open view to everything that brings into our world. And so we have an opportunity to acknowledge that loss. And when we knock on the door of rejection, or when it knocks on our heart loud enough, it's going to open up some wounds. And so we have an opportunity, as we have these wounds opened, to pay attention to them. And so one thing that really helped me is to journal about it, to write about it, to talk about it, to get it out of here so it doesn't infect me here, and it's out. There's much more going on than what I'm experiencing in my body, because I can viscerally experience it. The rejection, the grief, and the loss, I can feel it in my body. I felt it just 2 weeks ago when I was in Israel. That's for a whole nother live. Maybe I'll talk about that. But we do feel it. And so we can explore it through the lens of love that Elise spoke about earlier. And that's going to be some of our work to do. And that's part of what we're going to be doing in our Moving Beyond Challenge. Does this resonate with you? Do you want to move beyond some of these strongholds that rejection can bring into your world? If you do, this is your opportunity to move beyond some of this. We're going to walk with you. Leslie and each one of us coaches are going to be live every single day during that week. You're going to get emails and thought joggers to help you process and journal through some of that. We're having questions come into the feed about, what do we do when our adult daughters suddenly estrange themselves from us? What do we do then?
Right.
What do we do then? How do we process that?
Right.
What thoughts might you have on that, Elise?
Yeah. I think I would answer it. One is I would take a giant pause, to tell you the truth. There's no getting around that would, there would be some rumination if that was happening in my life. Like, why is this happening? Why is this happening? I mean, I'm so surprised by it. What's going on? Certainly there could even be some reaction as far as like, I would want to reach out. Hey, can you tell me what's going on? Right. But if I continue to get kind of this hand, right, of rejection or estrangement, right, then I have to begin to, almost as you say, like I can stay there and ruminate and go on and on. or I can begin to say, I'm not sure what's happening. I'm actually at a loss. Right? And so I need to be very, very careful of the narrative that I'm telling myself why this is happening. Right? It's a hard and a very weird place to say I don't know. But I have found in my own life that if I stay there when I don't know, it's not quite as painful as making up a story. Well, it must have been this reason or that reason. And then she said, and then they said, right? Because we are naturally meaning makers. God's created us to do that, right? And we're going to naturally fill in that big giant question mark. Like, what's going on? How did that happen? But ladies, this is where we can get lost and add to our suffering. When we start building that, what would it look like if we sat in the place and said, I simply don't know today? Right? I may know tomorrow. It may get revealed, the next day, another week. But how much, how much control do I have over it? If I have none, then how am I going to manage me? Right? Otherwise, that situation is going to manage you. Right? And if you've spent any time with Leslie Bernick, with any of the coaches, that is always going to be our shift. Is that we want you to stay in power of what you have control over. Our spouse leaves, we get fired from a job. We, our sisters, our brothers, our relatives, whoever it is, reject us. Sometimes we simply are powerless. But ladies, please hear me when I say, we're not saying, skippity doo-dah, let's move on. We're saying, ow, this hurts so bad. But who knows it greater than any of us is our Lord was despised and rejected. He knows rejection, right? To death, he was rejected. What? But for our glory and for his glory and ultimately for her good. So our Lord knows rejection. You are not alone in that process. And so certainly I would say, if you have a close confidant, share that. Can someone walk alongside you? That is our function of the Trinity, of the Spirit, to walk alongside of us in that pain and journey with us. But we want to invite you into a place of sometimes the unknown. We don't know. Can we survive in that place? And I think the more often we tell ourselves, I don't know that answer yet. And I've had a situation in my own life where I've had to say, this side of eternity, I'm not sure I will know the answer. It's a great grief, but I don't know. But in order for me to survive, I have to remind myself, I simply do not know.
Lisa, I love that. There's something really beautiful in when we land in the place of curiosity and not judging it and making a story about it. And there's tremendous healing that can come when we pause, when we notice, and then we make a choice on what it is we are going to do with what it is that we're noticing. And remaining in that curiousness about the rejection, about what's going on, whether it be a rejection from our daughters, our sons, our neighbors, our coworkers, wherever it is. I remember another coach of mine challenged me with this thought: nothing has meaning until you give it meaning.
That's right.
Ooh, and I was like, wait a minute, but doesn't this mean that I? Doesn't this mean that she? Doesn't this mean that he? Well, no, not necessarily. Not necessarily. Where we get to check our thoughts and where are those coming from?
Right.
And so this is what we love to walk with you on. So thank you. We just so appreciate the engagement that we're having today. And we just want to know that you belong here.
Yeah.
We see you and we hear you. And we just warmly want to invite you into this challenge. I know I am really looking forward to this challenge.
Yeah.
I can feel overwhelmed. I can have the buzz inside of my head that is spinning and talking to me so loudly that I'm not seeing what's really true. I can hold on to grudges. I don't know about you, but I can have bitterness in my heart. I can have a bad mood and kind of want to sit in it for a while. I can be afraid of wanting to try something new,
Right.
try
Right.
on a new mindset. That can be scary for me too.
Right. Right.
And so I know for me, I'm really looking forward to this challenge.
Right.
And I want to be able to have my yeses and
Mhm.
my nos
Mhm.
not be clouded or clothed in a voice of rejection.
Right.
And so if you want to jump on
Yeah.
into that, please join us
Right.
in our Moving Beyond Challenge next week. If you are a Conquer member and watching this, it's free for you. And if you want to know more about Conquer, put that into the feed. We can tell you. Otherwise, it's just $17. This
Right.
is nothing.
Right.
In the big scheme of things, imagine that you've done this challenge and you and I are sitting knee to knee in on the golly, what would it be? On the 26th of June. What is something that you move beyond that you really want to move beyond? It very well might be part of that week for you. So don't miss that
Mhm.
opportunity.
Mhm.
Yeah,
Mhm.
don't miss that.
Ladies, one of the things that I am kind of seeing in the feed that I think is really important again is really the level of suffering that you are experiencing, and I really appreciate that you are putting it out there, and really seeing that you are not alone in your suffering, and that's part of how we manage. Is that we weren't meant to do this alone, and that's one of the reasons why we're here, and we're really walking and talking through these really hard subjects. We're not afraid of them. We've experienced them ourselves. We know that they're real, and we know that you can suffer greatly for them. But we also want to spread that out a little bit in that rejection is very, deep and wide, right? From, Leslie really kind of shares the story of getting rejected, when she began writing books. Got 8 rejections, got 3 acceptances, right? What if she would have gotten 12, 11 or 12 rejections? What would have happened then? Right? And so she took just that little teeny bit and said, somebody thought it was valuable. Let me pay attention to that. What do I need to learn from that? Also another story is right, the author of The Help, how many rejections she got. But she learned, she got some feedback from those rejections and she took that in and went with it. And then we've got an incredible book and movie from The Help, right? And so, but I want you to say, like, when I started into graduate school, I was a more mature woman. I was not a young student anymore. And I was very, very afraid. I was so afraid just to apply to graduate school. I was a decent student. I've never been a straight A student. Truthfully, I don't really, like, school. I like learning, but I didn't like school. And I wasn't a particularly great tester. I could actually make decent grades, but I wasn't a particularly great tester. And so that was going to be required to get into graduate school. And for years, I let that thwart, you know, th- really what I thought my calling was for years and years. And finally, I just had to step into it and say, it's possible they're going to say no. Right. And I'm never going to be able to get there until I even see if I'm going to say no. But I was just assuming, making up this story, that I can't. And I was rejecting myself. I applied to 2 schools and got in both of them. Right. And so I said, hey, it's on them. They accepted me. now it's on them. But yeah, and that was a part of the process and it was a part of my growth. But we want to talk about a lot of places, where are you shrinking? Where are you not really flourishing out of fear of rejection? Right? Writing a book, going to graduate school, starting a different job, starting a different career. I was in my 40s when I started a different career. Went to school, went back to school, and then started a different career. And I'm sitting with 20-year-olds, right? I have a lot of runway just fresh out of college. And so they were bright girls. And so that was, it wasn't easy just because I got into graduate school, but it was really, and Leanne, I'd share with you, one of the things that are pretty scary for me is technology. And the second something goes wrong, I just almost melt away, right? And so I can begin this narrative saying, I can't do it. Instead of saying, you know what? Technology is going to mess up sometimes. It doesn't always mean that it's me that messes it up, right? but I take it so personal. Please be listening to your narrative. Let's answer another question. And Leanne, I'm going to turn a fan on above me. I am burning up and my cheeks are turning super pink. So hold on just a second.
Sure. Sure. I love that Elise brought that up, and I have this word up here, right? And so can't,
Yep.
we can, oh my goodness, this can be a stopper and this can be a huge rejection word. And you know what I love to do with this word? I love to do this. Let's see if I can do it on camera.
You can.
I love
You got it.
to do that. You can. You can. You can do this. You can overcome much more than you ever thought you could.
Right.
And another question that we have
Okay.
is this one. What if we know why the kids reject us?
Okay.
We're fighting with our abusive spouse because of trauma bonding. What do we do with that? What can we do when we have information? Then what? What do you think, Elise?
Yeah. Yeah. And again, that's a tough one. And I think many of the women that we work with are faced with that very often. And that's a super challenging place that we do have information. Now, what do we do with that information? And sometimes, ladies, again, I don't want to minimize this in any way. And so let's go to this hard place. It may be a grief that we suffer. When we have no control, we have no control.
That's right.
I'm not in the minds and the thoughts of anybody outside of me. I have a person I'm in very close relationship, my husband. I still don't know his thoughts, right? He has different thoughts. He has different feelings. He has different values. He has different beliefs. Now, certainly those differences cause a lot of conflict with all of us, right? And oftentimes it is the impetus for rejection. The differences are just too great. I can't live with that. And so there's this rejection, right? It doesn't necessarily, it's always a good thing or it hadn't been tried to work out or something, but it's usually a difference too great. And so there's some rejection. And so, but let me just say that one, it's very isolating. You would feel like you suffer alone, but you don't. And I also want to put on the end of this is that we are experiencing that now, but we don't know. There's a yet still to happen, right? It's possible a year from now, 6 months from now, 2 years from now. So the grief we are experiencing now may not be the grief that we experience tomorrow. So again, staying in truth and reality, I am estranged. You can say, I am estranged from my children today. I don't know tomorrow. Ladies, we don't know the future. But I'm going to grieve it today. And that's the appropriate response. And it hurts.
Elise, I love that you brought that up. There is a yet to come, and we don't know tomorrow. I was just in Israel, and I got to see the oldest city in the world, Jericho. And we don't know what loop we're on.
Right.
We don't know when the walls are going to fall down.
Right.
And when the relationship doors are going to reopen again.
Right.
One thing that we do know is there is more to come. There's much more to the story that we haven't seen. And the grief and loss is real. And that's another question that we had on our list, at least from our listeners today, is what do we do with the loss and the grief? We feel it. We embrace it. We don't minimize it. We don't dismiss it. Right. We acknowledge it. We accept that it's real and it's there. Just like the sting. I mean, the sting that we experience, it's going to need some care. Right. I remember as a little girl, I sat on a bee and it stung the back of my leg. Ooh. And it was big. And not only, I literally sat, and so it was there, and I pushed that stinger right into the back of my leg. And I remember jumping up and crying. It hurt so bad. Mm-hmm. And it needed care. It was a wound. Mm-hmm. Right. And so, my mom had to make a poultice of baking soda. All of these wonderful things. And she took care of it. I had to take care of it. I had to give it space and time to heal. Mm-hmm. I couldn't rub it. I couldn't sit down for a long time because of that. And so that is something that we can do. We can give the grief and loss a safe space
Mm-hmm.
to be felt, to be experienced, to be expressed, to be explored.
Mm-hmm.
There is something very beautiful when we do that and we don't reject it. We don't want to reject the grief and loss that we are experiencing. There is something in it for us.
Another thing I think I would add to that, Leanne, is that grief is really the highest form of suffering, right? Internally, we may feel pain, externally from other sources or something, but grief is such an acute pain, and it can either form us or deform us. And so, one of the decisions that you have control over is this grief going to be formative? Is this suffering going to be formative in my life, or is it going to be deformative in my life? Right. And we have seen people that have suffered great loss and really their life never recovered from it. Right. And then we've seen people, I mean, I can't think of somebody right off my head, but I mean, we know, I stopped and wrote some people down. It wouldn't take long to think of people who have really survived great suffering, and it has formed them in an incredibly powerful way. Somewhere they made a decision, almost as Leanne's kind of phrase, I'm not going to let this be the death of me, right? I'm not going to lose who I am, my life over this, right? I am going to suffer, and we're not going to ignore that. That would be unhealthy.
That's right.
We are going to acknowledge it, and it is going to be a grief.
Mm-hmm.
Right? And we would probably continue to acknowledge it for a lifetime. But will it form you or will it deform you? Please ask yourself, is this deforming my life? What control do I have over it? What choices can I make for my good in this suffering?
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
That's so good, Elise. When we can respect the grief and the loss, when we can receive it and hold it and know that there's going to be different seasons in it. And the rejection, in my life, the seasons of rejection, they come and go. I love the 4 seasons that we get to experience, right? We have our winters, we have our springs, we have our summers, and we have our falls. And to acknowledge that, to commit to that truth, that there are going to be seasons that are going to be harder and more challenging than others in our lives. And what we do with the rejection when it comes our way is going to say a lot about us as human beings and what we believe. Some of the beliefs that we hold, the assumptions that we make, and the interpretations that we hold benefit us in huge ways.
Right.
And, another thing I am not willing to do is to allow the rejection of man or woman to prevent me from receiving all that God has for me in this life moving forward.
100%.
And so when we can know what it is we value, who it is God created us to be, the sting of rejection is not going to be so impactful and damaging to my soul, because I'm going to know my worth and value. And that was another big question that came up. It's like, what is worth and value? What is worth and value?
Yeah.
And I think, that could be a whole nother Facebook Live, and we've only got about 6 minutes left.
Right.
And so perhaps we'll put that on the docket. But what I would love to hear from you ladies, something that I would love for you to populate the feed with right now is, what would be different for you if you did not allow rejection to stop you from taking a breath, a deep breath,
right,
and breathing in more of what the Spirit wants to give you? What will be different for you if you didn't do that?
Right. What if you really believed this is not going to diminish my worth in spite of the pain? I feel at this moment, which is just a feeling, I feel worthless. But that is not true about me. It is simply a feeling. And the truth is feelings come and go. And they have stickiness too. If we allow them, they'll have some great stickiness. If we can say, ouch, this hurts. This is really painful. I'm going to suffer for months, maybe even years with this grief, but it is not going to diminish my worth because my spouse or my children kind of picked me up and put me over here doesn't diminish my worth. And that's why I did this silly, hopefully somewhat lighthearted thing with this handbag. It didn't diminish the worth, even though that was an object and we are people. I wanted you to see that it went from my hands to somebody else's hands who said, this is valuable, right? And so ladies, if someone says you are not valuable, that can be their opinion or their thought or their belief. That is not yours. Do not let them determine your worth and value. It has already been determined on the cross. Hallelujah. And you are valuable.
Hallelujah. Type into the feed right now. It's like
it's already been settled.
It's already, your worth and value has already been settled at Calvary. I was at Calvary. I was just there 2 weeks ago.
No.
Ladies, I walked the steps to Calvary and I stood where Jesus was crucified. And let me just tell you something.
I'm going to cry.
I cried there. I couldn't breathe there. I had to grab my husband's arm to steady me, ladies, because the power of the Spirit was so strong in that space. It blew me away. The presence of God is so real. And maybe somebody needs to hear that in this space right now. God is so real, ladies. He sees you and he hears you and he sees you in the midst of your rejection and he sees you in the sting and he sees you in the sticky points and he holds you and he is drawing you to himself right now here in this space. He will never reject you. He will never turn his back on you. Right. He will never say that you do not have worth and value because he died for you. If you would have been the only woman, he would have done that for you. And he rose again. So rejection will not have a hold on you. That's what he rose again for. And so if you are ready, I'm all hot. I need a fan. So here's the deal. If you want to let go of rejection and overwhelm, people pleasing, bitterness,
right,
and even the fear to embrace who you really are in Christ. Maybe that's a fear you have. And the rejection of man keeps you in that fear.
That's right.
Maybe that's part of it. Join us in this challenge. I need you here in this challenge because I learn from you every
Don't reject us.
I know, I'm in my power pose. I want you here with us. Please join us. And we're going to be talking about all things worth, all things value, and that you can move beyond what holds you back. You can, girlfriend. You can.
Yeah, you absolutely can.
Oh my goodness. Elise, we are at the top of the hour. What other closing thoughts would you like to share with our ladies?
I kind of almost want to leave it with let's just lay ourselves before the eyes of the Lord. Really, when we get in that place of rejection, when we get in that place of fear about what others are going to think, and so we avoid doing stuff because we're afraid of their rejection, we have lowered our eyes to man, and we're afraid of their pair of eyes. Let's keep our focus on the Lord. He is not going to reject us. And when we think about it, that's a million pair of eyes. The rest of our life, if we're always worried about your pair of eyes and your pair of eyes and your pair of eyes and what you're going to think and what you're going to think, can you? Well, no wonder we're exhausted, and we walk around so afraid. Let's be worried about one pair of eyes and one pair of eyes only, and that's the Lord's eyes. And He's not going to reject us, even when man does. Let's live before those eyes.
Love that. Because they're the eyes that matter. Thank you, Elise. Thank you so much, everyone.
Well, thank you so much.
It's been a delight and a pleasure to be here with you all. I see we have one more question. I'm going to go ahead. We can either answer it or we can go into the feed and answer it. How are you doing?
Go ahead and answer it. I'll hang up.
All right, here's our last question.
Mhm.
How do you combat the mean and hurtful things that an ex-spouse has said? I can't stop hearing and replaying those hateful, hurtful words in my mind.
Yeah.
And that voice is loud. And I will just say what Elise just shared about the pair of eyes.
Mhm.
Whose voices are you going to allow to be the loudest in your life?
Mhm. Mhm.
Mere man?
Right.
He's a created being.
Right.
Yeah,
We're not saying they don't hurt.
absolutely.
We're not saying they don't hurt. But you have an opportunity to, like, you can come back, when the scripture says, don't return evil for evil. We've been called by a higher pair of eyes not to return evil for evil. Right. And so we get to decide how we want to return that. Right. And we're
Right.
not going to be foolish in our return, but we're not going to be unchristlike in that return either. And that's really what empowers us, and how we, I love your little power girl, how we actually, if I succumb to that, which we're all capable of doing, if I succumb to that, then my eyes are even lower. And then shame walks in, right? So we have to leave evil. We have to leave those ugly words belong to him. They do not belong to you. They came your way. They were arrows. They hurt, right? But those were his words. Those are not your words. Don't own them. They do not determine your worth. Decide who you're going to be with a big giant pause, how you're going to respond to that. You get to decide.
Elise, so good. You talked about my worthy girl. I'm going to hold her really close.
Yeah.
Look where her eyes are looking.
Oh, they're up.
They look up.
They do look up.
And so that's what we can do in the midst of mean and hurtful words.
Yeah.
Is look up, girlfriends.
Yeah.
Look up.
Right.
And on that note, we're going to close for today. I have the privilege of being here with you all tomorrow. I am so excited. We have some lives coming up this week. So mark your calendars right now. Yeah. Tomorrow, June the 14th, 12 p.m. Eastern, I'm going to be here. Oh my goodness. You know what we're going to be talking about? You're going to like this one. You're going to like this one. Mark your calendars. Agreeing with others just to be liked.
There it is.
That's what I'm going to be talking about tomorrow. So I hope that you can join me here tomorrow, 12 p.m. Eastern time, right here on Leslie's page. Then Wednesday, June 15th at 1:30 Eastern time, we're going to have another live. And then Friday, June the 17th at 12 p.m. Eastern time. So please mark your calendars. We love to meet with you here. It is an honor to share this space with you. So thank you. Thank you to Jessica behind the scenes, who is supporting us today. We so appreciate our tech team. Elise, it has been a delight
always
to chat with you today and to just share this beautiful space. I pray you have a lovely day and embrace all God has for you.
For everyone. Thank you. Take care.
Oh my goodness. I just need to find our, hang on with me here a second, ladies. I got all kinds of buttons up on my, there we go. Thank you, dear ones. We'll see you again soon. God bless and be well.